In this movie, we take a look at how to work with our relative property as well as our z-index. So to do this, let's go ahead and let's mess around a little bit with our HTML because we want to pull in a couple of images to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a couple of images here. I'm going to name this first image img1 and set its source to the location of an image that we have, which is going to be in the images folder, and it is the GIMP logo.ping. And we're going to do two images, so I'm just going to copy that HTML. I'm going to put it right after CSS here. And I'm doing this because our images are n-line elements by default. So here we go. I'll go ahead and save that and then refresh, and I see now that we have images here. If you notice, it appears as if our images are appearing behind everything else. Well, we're going to want to take care of that, definitely. But before we take care of that, we just want to give it some breathing space. So let's modify our styles up here with our first and second column and set the tops so that they're going to be, say, 300. 300 is probably more than enough space. So do 300, save and refresh, and there we go. So now we see that there's this blank spot where our images are by default here. So if I jump back into my HTML here and go to my style section, I can add in a rule here for img1 and set its position to relative. Now for this example, it may be helpful if I go ahead and add that border back to our heading here. So I'll do border 1px black solid. And so now for the image, I want to make sure that I put in my property to position it. Now I want this to move over to the right of where it is right now. So to do that, I need to add in space on its left-hand side. Now because I use this left 100 pixels, what's going to happen is it's going to gain 100 pixels to its left edge. So it's the left edge of where it originally was in our document flow. So I'll go ahead and save that and jump over back to my browser. And I refresh, and it adds that 100 pixels to the left-hand side. So if you notice here, it jumps over, and there's this blank spot where it was originally. And now that's because we are using this relative positioning. I'm going to go ahead and jump back into my HTML here, and I'm going to change my position here to the absolute. I'll save and refresh. And what happens is it's now removed from our natural flow. Now it still is being positioned according to its original containing element, which is the paragraph. Now I'm going to go ahead here and add in a rule for my second image. Go ahead and modify that to image 2, then save and refresh, and now I end up seeing how the top of our images is more or less lined up to the top of our containing element, because all we did was set the left. Now if I jump back in here, and if I set that left to 0, save and refresh, notice how it's all the way over to the left hand side because we set left to 0, and all we've done is we removed it from the flow. Now at this point we actually have two overlapping images because they are taking up that same position with this left 0. So we can control which one goes on top by specifying our z-index. I'm going to go ahead and set this to a 1. Save and jump over here and refresh. And because we specify that as z-index 1 and no other z-indexes have been specified, our GIMP image is now in front. And it looks kind of a little weird because our colors are matching on the Inkscape logo. Now if I set the z-index for our Inkscape logo to anything higher than 1, the Inkscape logo will appear on top. So that's how our z-index is going to work, and that is also how our relative positioning functions as well. So that concludes our look at relative positioning and the z-index playing around inside of our sandbox.